Hey, Between Views community. Did you watch Family Guy growing up like I did? If so, we've got something really special for you today. Today's guest is Mike Henry, co-producer, writer, director and voice actor of Family Guy, The Cleveland Show and the original voice of Cleveland Brown and much more. Come along with us as we dive into Mike's story. Welcome to Between Views. I'm your host, Alec Koski. This podcast aims to cast light on and connect you with inspirational people, identify them as potential mentors in your journey, and invite them to share their stories and wisdom with the world. My hope is that this podcast contains some information that is vital in your journey, or maybe even shifts something you believe. In this episode, we converse with Mike Henry about his ayahuasca experience, the time he met Mick Jagger, and also his work on The Mike Henry Show. Hope you enjoy.
You know, I don't know if we were going to get into this or not, but I told you I did ayahuasca in February. Do you want to talk about this?
Do you want to talk about this?
Sure, yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about ayahuasca.
Well, I went down to Costa Rica and I did it for a week. There was a week-long retreat. We did it 4 nights in a row. Mm-hmm. And I had been in like talk therapy for decades about just trying to come to terms with why, you know, I was so angry about things, or why, you know, I would get sad, or why I felt worthless sometimes, or, you know, like I've never really been a depressed person, but there were things, you know, in the face of sort of on paper having it all, you know, got a beautiful wife, got happy, healthy children, I've got, you know, a successful career and some, you know, of some financial security and that type of stuff. Yet I would still get like really pissed off at a football game on the TV, or just something. It's just like, I'd be like, what is going on here? You know, like, so I had heard about ayahuasca, and it you know, they say it calls you or it doesn't, and so it was just calling me. So I went to try to get to the root of that, and, you know, just to find peace. And I knew it had something to do with my parents getting divorced when I was young, and that's really what I had focused on in therapy and all this other stuff. So I went down there, and I was expecting to have a conversation with my 6-year-old self, and, you know, and maybe my dad at the time, and, like, you know, sort of have this psychedelic manifestation of, you know, let's get all this straight and, you know, let's work this out. I became my 6-year-old self. Like, in the middle of this psychedelic journey, I started looking around, not literally, but, you know, with my eyes closed. I was in the attic where I had completely forgotten I would go and hang out right after my parents got divorced. I became my 6-year-old self. The medicine goes in you, and it finds where you're holding your trauma and your tension, and it stirs it up, and it stirs the emotions, and it stirs the memories. And like, I had just this flood of what ifs and, you know, why this and blah, 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 blah. And I barfed all of it into a bucket, just in like a frenzy. It, you know, I came to like the end, what they say is the end of your ego road. Like you know, when you have trauma, you put a shell around yourself and you move forward in life. And then you can only go so far. And so once I got to the end of that road, I surrendered and let the medicine get all of that out of me, and it was totally gone. Like, it completely changed me. I felt, to this day, you know, 6 months later, I'm utterly relieved of that. I spent so many years trying to understand and trying to figure out this and that, and now I you know, when you have that trauma, you process it logically but not emotionally, because that's how you move forward. That's how you cope. During my time down there in Costa Rica, I processed it all emotionally, and I am, that shit is gone, man. It was amazing, and it was the first time that I actually loved myself, literally. Like, I was hugging myself, I was kissing my arms and shoulders, dancing under the moon. Like, it was, you know, it was the most utterly authentic experience I could ever imagine. So much so that I'm going back. I'm going back in September, but just cut to it all. And you could feel the spirits. I could see energy in people's buckets that were being carried out. I could see black smoke coming off of the buckets. I could see bad energy. And that's what that medicine does.
When you're under the influence of
Yeah. And, my brother passed away 7 years ago from diabetes complications, and I connected directly with his spirit when I was under the influence of the medicine. And there were things that no one else would know, or you couldn't really explain, but I connected with him. Now that he is in a spiritual form, he was no longer inhibited by his body, which failed him, and his own, depression and things like that caused a lot of issues for our family. Like, I'm getting super deep here, but what I'm saying is it just completely broadened my spectrum, it's the opposite of watching television.
Yeah.
It's, you are so aware, there's so much going on.
Yeah.
I love myself. I respect my body so much, and I always kind of have, although I used to drink and smoke a lot of weed and stuff and just try to feel better. But you're just very aware that this body is just a series of explosions of chemical reactions, of vibrations and matter and energy, and, it's going to burn itself out after a while, and your spirit's going to move on. So all of that it's not even in my head, it's in my heart. I understand, and that was one of the things they talked about down there was moving the center of your life 16 inches down from your head to your heart. And I realized that I'd been protecting my heart for 50 years and how much energy that took, and it was all those jokes that I made that were mean back in the day, and it was all just deflection. And so now I'm just wide open, and I feel great.
What's the difference in life now that you're wide open as opposed to protective of your heart? What changed in 6 months?
I'm just lighter. I just feel like I can adapt. I feel like I can. I feel like I'm centered. I feel like I completely value myself. I feel confident. Like I used to get a little starstruck a lot, like when famous people would come around or this, that, the other. And it's funny because right after I did that, so I met a guy down there in Costa Rica whose best friend is Keith Richards' guitar tech. And I knew that the Stones were going to be coming and they were going to be rehearsing for their tour where my office is. And so I said to the guy, "Oh, wow, Keith, okay, yeah, I think they're coming to warm up." And he's like, "Oh, you should, I'll put you in touch with my friend." So he put me in touch with his friend and met his friend. His friend's like, "Oh, when are you doing your podcast with Seth?" "Okay, I'm doing it on this date." He's like, "Oh, I'll see if I can get Mick and Keith to walk in because they're hilarious and blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Okay." And so I'm interviewing Seth, knock at the door, friggin' Mick Jagger walks in.
I actually watched that episode.
Yeah. And then
podcast.
Keith didn't come in, but Ronnie Wood came in. And it was so freaking cool. And I knew that this might happen. And so before, I had my assistant and then the one of the guys that was doing the camera, I just said, "Can you guys just go sit outside? I need to meditate." I needed to meditate and just breathe and be ready and be open, to whatever was going to happen. And so I took that moment to get really aware, and then, everything went great. And so having met Mick Jagger now, no one else I'm not going to be starstruck by anyone,
Yeah.
Maybe Paul McCartney, and I really want to meet Jim Carrey sometime.
Yeah. Actually, Jim Carrey, for more reasons than one, I can see so many lines drawn between you and him. Mm-hmm. Is he someone you look up to in a big way?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah? When you said that, I was like, whoa, hang on a minute. That's like power pair. That's great. Is he like a mentor for you in a way?
Not really a mentor. I'm just a huge fan of his work, obviously, but then also of his mindset. He's very much into self-actualization and,
More of recent, right?
Yeah. He's really gone to this place where he sees it all for what it is.
After he played who was that guy that he did it?
Kaufman.
Yeah. After he did that, he changed, right? He had like an ego death through acting.
I think so.
Right, full engagement as an actor in someone else as someone else, and he forgot who he was. Right.
Right.
The way I understand it.
Yeah, that actually makes sense. I'm not quite sure. That totally makes sense.
That's what it appeared to as me. Like, and I think I watched like a documentary on that, his realizations during that, how he completely didn't know who Jim Carrey was anymore because he went so far out of his ego and into someone else's,
right,
that he truly wasn't Jim Carrey anymore. And when he tried to come back, he no longer knew who he was.
Right. And I've heard, he's talked extensively about Jim Carrey was a character as much as anyone else, and the other characters he's played, and that we're all playing characters. And But I think what happened as a result of doing the plant medicine, it led directly to me meeting Keith, to meeting Mick Jagger. And, it wasn't any big, long thing. It was like 2 minutes, but it was still like, this is it. I'm, now I can meet anyone, like I don't care who it is. But
yeah, right.
But it also folds right into the self-love that I, achieved during that trip. And it's just like, we're all just friggin' human beings. That's it. And, just, I don't know. I just feel so happy to be alive. I feel so much gratitude for everything, every day. And, I still get irritated with this or that. I don't drink anymore. Like I drank a ton in my 20s, just being a young idiot, and that was mostly before I went to California. But I still, wouldn't mind tying one on here and there.
Yeah, every now and then.
And then weed, like I loved weed forever up until like a year ago, and I would smoke or eat edibles or whatever, and literally like it doesn't do I don't even think about it. I used to always think about it all the time. It's like, shit, should I eat a sativa right now? Or should I have I could have one of those hybrids or,
Interesting. I can see like what you're saying is like, you said it before, like you used to do that stuff to kind of manage a feeling that you were having. But post ayahuasca, you addressed probably more or less the source of that feeling.
100%.
And now you no longer feel the desire to mask it.
Yes.
It's like you're sitting in a more loving space with yourself and the
100%.
world, and as a result, you're feeling less pain from trauma, and because of that, you can just sit peacefully now, rather than having to like get rid of that harsh feeling with something else. Yeah,
and they're low vibration, like weed and booze are, they bring you down.
What's high vibe?
Ayahuasca, baby. And some psilocybin. I've done, I've definitely done shrooms a bunch of times, and I've microdosed a few times since then. But even then, I found myself sort of coming down, and I don't want the come down. I want to just be. Yeah.
I told you the other day I had a dream with you in it the other night where I was picking like electric ones. And you were all
blue
stoked.
And red ones, you said.
They were just like blue lightning, and they were huge. And you were stoked for it. You were coming around to hang out. And then Sarah came around, and she was like, "Nah, we're going home."
Then wifey came and dragged me away. No, that wouldn't happen. No, she's totally cool. She trusts whatever I feel like I need to do, and she definitely likes to have a good time, and you know. But that's funny that you dreamed that.
Yeah, I was like, he's entered into my consciousness. Yeah. You had your ayahuasca experience. Now you can like penetrate the minds of others. You're just like rolling through my dreams now. That's awesome.
Some Jedi shit going.
Well, welcome to my mind.
There you go. That's
you
nice.
Looked like you were enjoying it. So that's good. That's good news for me. It must be nice in there.
Good.
Thank you for all that so far. I guess the final part of this, if you've still got time.
Yeah.
I look to you now as a mentor, and a big part of this show is, your story is inspiring for sure. You followed your dreams, you followed your passion, you did the 10,000 hours, you met people
it's about 40,000 now, but
right.
Keep going.
And it keeps on going, right? It's constant dedication to something. And to me, that makes you like quite a powerful mentor, and someone that I will be looking to from now on, just to see how it is that you're doing things, now that we've met. And I'd love just a moment to just learn from you, as if, you were the person in charge of like teaching me things, for example, just for this next kind of little bit of the show. Mm-hmm. So the things that I typically ask, one thing that I really want to know, because you did it and I'm currently doing it, I'd love to get better at it. When you were podcasting, if you gave me any tips and tricks that made your life just a million times easier, or like things that are so worth knowing, but maybe I don't, could you please tell me what they are?
Yeah, well, number one, I think you're great at it. This is a great conversation. I think you are good at, you know what, you have an interest in what I have to say, and you've thought it through, and you ask questions, and then you let me talk. And I think that is the best thing. And you're obviously listening because you're responding in a thoughtful way and getting, I think this is a great conversation. It's as good as I could imagine. My own podcasting hosting experience, I did a little, I don't know, I guess you would call it a talk show during COVID, where I did Instagram lives like 4 nights a week for, I think, 6 weeks, right there at the beginning of the lockdown. I think it was like in April, May. And I just talked to, everyone was stuck. And so it was easy to get good folks on there. And, number one, with me, it was just talking to friends, people along my comedy journey or that I'd worked with on this or that show. And, so I did that some, and then I just did in the spring of this year, 2024, 16 weeks, pretty much in a row. I think I took 1 week off, where again I introduced or interviewed my friends who I'd worked with in comedy, and we just sort of had conversations. I did it because I didn't feel like going and doing stand-up. Like I'm not a night person anymore. I like to get up early and whatever. So I had this really cool office that I got and, fell in with the right situation and got some great people to help me with cameras and things. And so I basically just had a little pop-up talk show in my office where, we turn on the lights and point the cameras and get the mics out, and we're good.
The Mike Henry Show.
The Mike Henry Show, which is on YouTube. So I did that for 16 weeks in a row, and I enjoyed it. And it was a way that I could talk about real things like we're doing today, and then, be funny or whatever. I thought I could just be myself, and hence I named it the Mike Henry Show. And so I did it for the purpose of sort of greasing the wheel. I wasn't really sure what I want my next project to be. I've got a lot of ideas spinning. I had just moved back to LA. We just relocated from Virginia a year ago. And so it was a way for me to just sort of get my feet on the ground and reintroduce myself to my friends that I hadn't seen in a while and do that. So what it turned into was sort of catch-ups with friends and observations on comedy and current things and some jokes that just came out of nowhere, and that was kind of it. And it was also a way for me to showcase commercial parodies and all the things that I'd made along the way. I just put them up. I'd do a commercial break in each one, and I would just put it on there, some old thing that I had done. So I did it as just for all those reasons. You're doing this for sort of the reason of being a thoughtful human who is exploring the world and being your best self and wanting to find and talk to people who are trying to do the same. Is that basically what you're doing?
So each year I reflect for a moment at the end of the year. I usually do a bit of like self-help reading stuff and then journal on that a whole bunch and figure out what's the next way that I can up this, that I have my skill set, similar to the way that you make people laugh. I've always been very curious, and I noticed that I naturally take interest in what other people are doing, and the stuff that they're interested in I found interesting too. And in reflection, I found that I was looking for a way to help others, and the best thing that I could think of last year was this. This was my answer to that question. After lots of journaling, reflection, meditating on it, I found that just doing that thing that I naturally always have done was actually my best thing. I also kind of sucked at listening before this, so I wanted to prove to myself and others that I'm better at listening, and get better at it just by practice. And I was imitating like my mentor, Jerry Garbulski, he does something just like this. And I noticed that we imitate the people that we admire. So I figured, well, if I can help others, I can learn new things about the world. I can gather new points of information to trigger the next points of information I need to know and connect with people. Then I'm kind of hitting all the boxes. It's like Ikigai almost for me. It's like this is the closest I've got to that understanding of Ikigai, that central point that does, all the 4 major things that you need to do in the world.
Okay. What are the 4 things?
That's a great question. Let me see if I can bring them up. So one of them is the things that you do for money. The other one of them is things that you do to help others. One is the thing that you're most interested in and passionate about, I think. And then the 4th one always escapes me, but the middle one is it's like a Venn diagram, and the central one is the one that's Ikigai. That's the Japanese idea that like that's the perfect spot for you.
Right, that touches them all.
Yeah, so I guess I'm narrowing and focus on that in a way. But it's easy to get carried away, and I'm sure you probably experienced this once you started to experience more and more fame with the Family Guy show and stepping in as Cleveland, and like you can get swept away with that stuff, but it's really important, I found, to not. It's actually the value is this moment that is so much more important. Like this chat, it may trigger something for you. It may trigger something for me that's just going to be like, oh, didn't even realize that. Yeah. It's the old like Socrates, Plato, all that stuff that talk and talk and talk and talk. And then from that talk, they had their next direction, their next.
That's why I did the podcast, mine.
Yeah?
Yeah. It was greasing the wheel. It was trying to, what can spark out of here. There was something I had a thought, but it ran away. I'll go ahead and put Jim Carrey on funniest people on that list as well.
Jim Carrey, funniest people.
Yeah.
He's in. What did you learn from doing the Mike Henry show? What was the number one takeaway for you from that experience sitting down? Because I've got so much from this. Unbelievable amount from it. Didn't see it coming. What was your takeaway from doing the Mike Henry show?
That's a very good question. So I started recording them before the holidays last year, and I did the last one in April, and it is now August. So 4 months later, looking back, I think I realized that I just don't want to get bogged down in day-to-day stuff. Like I love sitting down and having the conversations, and I love listening to them once. But being that these were on video, we all would go back through and put in photographs and, the commercial break. And then my assistant would cut them up into bite-sized chunks to post here and there. And I just realized that I just really don't like doing all of that stuff. I don't like worrying about what hashtags and hyperlinks and, all this shit. Like, I'm just like... but then again, I was wanting to have so much control over which chunks went out because they were the ones representing me. So it was a very good exercise in conversations. I really enjoyed the conversations. I had no agenda. I had no question. You've written things down. I had nothing. Yeah. I literally would just say, so what's up? How you been? And then we would talk for an hour, and that was it. And so I enjoyed the conversations, and, I really like what your sort of mission is with your podcast. And it reminded me, and this is what I was trying to remember a moment ago, in my plant medicine journey, I had sort of come to my personal reckoning and self-love on the second night. So I still had another couple nights of stuff to see what would happen. Yeah. So I set an intention that what I asked the medicine for was to release or unblock, release or clear out anything that is blocking me from spreading as much love, laughter, and encouragement to the world as I possibly can. So I think it's similar to yours. I want to spread laughter, love, and encouragement. I just want people to feel good and feel empowered. I want to broaden people's spectrum. I want to decrease their blind spots, improve their own energy and passion for what it is that they want to do.
One thing that really jumped out at me in that last part of the conversation was you talked about ways that you can decrease your blind spot, like expand your vision, I guess, in a way. But that would be a great name for a book, like a how-to book of like decreasing the blind spot. And it's literally like a list of things that make you like more aware and can see more of the world and more of the truth that exists.
Yeah.
And even if it's not a book, a very healthy thought experiment just to like journal about oneself and think like, what would decrease my blind spot right now?
Yeah, no, that's good. No, because we all have them. I mean, I'm talking about the mass. I'm talking about like societal structures that are not in your best interest, that are simply there to sell you and to make money, which, you know, all of that stuff that I mentioned is. So, and again, I'm not saying I'm any better than anyone else. I'm just pointing at these obvious things that are in most people's lives in our culture that just are not, they're not real, and they're not in your best interest. You know, I think if, you know, just watching, you know, sports now, most sports, it's just so overblown with analysis shows and hype shows and highlight shows and gambling now, like all the it's just like, you know, these gambling outlets are all advertising it, and it's just like fantasy football, and it's just like, what is everybody doing? I don't know. I don't want to turn people off by spouting all this stuff, but I'm just trying to raise the question, like, is it really the best use of your life to, you know? And for some people, maybe it is. Maybe we're all just trying to get through, and at least it's a diversion. And
also, without the contrast of these types of people, you wouldn't know what the lighter side of this feels like.
Yeah.
Right. So like the duality of people like that being around is that you get to understand the opposite of that, which is great. Without them, there would be no opposite.
Right. Without darkness.
Exactly. Exactly. One question that came just to my mind right now. My shows are like long.
Yeah.
And I think it's because we get just into the conversation, we keep going. But you bring humor in so well at just the right times. And I know it's maybe not my natural life path, but what's like a tip for like bringing humor into shows? Like, does it just like arrive with you and you just say it, or like is there like something I could do to make them like, I guess, bring more humor, comedy in?
Just have more comedians on.
Just have more comedians. Actually bring in more comedy.
No, you know, I take that as a huge compliment, what you just said, and that's something that I've noticed. And you know what? I'm glad you said that, because that is something that I learned from my talk show, from my podcast. Is we would get into a serious conversation, and then, you know, then I would just throw in an eating pussy joke. You know, just we'd be talking about just something so deep and so heavy and whatever, and then it's just like in a very straight way. It's just be like, yeah, it's just like, you know, it's just like eating pussy, and like what, you know, just so out of nowhere, like you know, it's but that's what I learned structurally, like in a script that I write. I never watch comedies. I never watch, like if I'm browsing for something to watch, it's usually like some old movie, or like, you know, movies from the 70s, or a documentary, or, you know, something. I rarely will sit down and watch a comedy, because I don't want to be told that something's funny. You know, like I'd rather watch something that is of meaning, that has funny stuff in it.
And find something funny about it.
Yeah. So I hope I didn't just blow your whole podcast with my eating pussy joke.
No. It's probably a good thing for the podcast.
Okay, good.
Yeah, because that was what I was asking for, and you just did it for me. So.
Okay, good.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Collaboration.
Okay. So I'm sorry.
Every future podcast from now on is just me. Like, I'm just like, and then eating pussy. Just like throw it in there out of context, not even related.
Right. It's like, well, all right, Alec, hey, you know, listen, I listened to your last episode, and, you know, it's funny. I mean, it was a good try, but maybe not.
It just everyone from here on out has an E next to it.
Right, exactly. Oh, you're gonna have an E next to it now.
Yeah, I'm gonna have an E next to it now. We made it.
You know what? People are gonna watch.
Yeah, the E. The E just draws people in. Brilliant. Well, that was the answer I was looking for.
Okay. It always is.
Yeah. We're pretty much getting close to the very end here. Philosophy, life lessons, moral code always happens throughout it, so I won't bother asking it directly. I guess I'm inspired by the people on my show, and I found, honestly, like, nearly everyone has something so inspirational about them if you're willing to sit with them and talk about it, the thing that they love.
Yeah.
Who's that person for you? Who are you imitating? Who is this person that, like, you saw and you're like, whoa, they've got it going on? You've already mentioned, like, Jim Carrey and stuff, but, like, is there someone that you, like, really, really admire?
Well, it's more, I don't know, for me it's more of like a thing. Eating pussy has, since the idea crossed my mind, I figured, that there's nothing more inspiring. There's nothing to strive for on a constant basis. Let's see. I guess then my inspiration would be Ron Jeremy? No.
That's fine. We could leave that there.
Yeah, we probably should.
Okay. Inspired by Ron Jeremy. Ooh. And then, I guess, to be honest, that pretty much brings us right to the end. And I'm glad to finish like that. We started fun, we finished fun. It's a fun sandwich.
Anytime you can finish eating pussy, that's best.
Let's end with the show tradition.
Okay.
So the show tradition is to answer the last guest question.
Oh.
And this one was asked to you, and I think he'll be chuffed to know that, like, who he asked the question to.
Okay.
And because people never expect, I don't even know who it is a lot of the time.
Sure.
His name is John Fernandez, and he's a musician from India. And I work with him in the US, and him and his whole family are these incredible musicians from India. And that's what they've built their life and their career around.
Okay.
And super impressive. His show will be just before your one in the sequence. So his question was for you.
How far ahead does it make sense to plan personally for your personal wants and needs ahead? And what should you plan for?
I personally think it is good to at least consider things that you may need to consider for the rest of your life. I've done estate planning. I have done, a will and things like that. So I think the literal answer to that question would be till the end of your life. So I've made plans for when I die.
Yeah.
That said, I think, there are a couple. I think maybe there are two main ways that I have sort of addressed my approach to life. One is what gives me energy. Follow what gives me energy. You can call that your passion or your passion. Whatever gives you energy when you do it. Whatever you want to do more and more besides eating pussy is, like eating ass. No, I'm just kidding. I don't want to eat ass. Sorry. Earning that.
If eating ass gives you energy, please pursue eating ass.
Yep.
To our listeners who like that.
Go ahead. So beyond planning for the end of life and wills and estates and all that kind of stuff, I think my approach to life is always, it's sort of a dual approach. One is following what gives you energy or passion, what you love to do. If you can do what you love to do most of the time, that's where you go. Then there are logic, same word base. How do you make it so that you can do that other thing? How do you make it so that you can do what gives you the most energy all the time? You need to, hey.
It's 5 o'clock.
Nice. It's 5 o'clock here. So is that going to beep for a minute?
It's done now. I just give a high five to anyone who's around at 5 o'clock. It's 5 o'clock.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, so you were here.
We did it. Nice. So yes. So I think as far as planning goes, I think you got to just sort of feel what you want to do and have some logical way that you can pursue it. Like, if you love skipping rocks across the lake and you want that to be your career, you might need to do something else to supplement that. But
logistics.
You might need to, build a sports network that could ultimately show you skipping rocks across the lake so that you could pay yourself, I don't know what the deal is. But, if you can find a thing that there's any way at all to make be your living or make it be so you can do it all the time, those are the kinds of plans you want to make. I think you want to plan, make whatever plans you need to make to do the thing that you love the most, or to do things that you love, to be free. So if that's a 10-year plan to retire, or if that's a plan to work this long and then, do this other thing on the side and then have them come together, or, whatever it is, I don't think there's a set amount of time that you can put on how far ahead you should plan.
There you have it.
Yeah.
Mark
now, am
Henry,
I supposed to ask a question?
You are supposed to ask a question.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
That's part of the tradition, right? You're meant to ask a question. You're throwing this one out full blown to the verse. It could be someone here on Ireland, most likely, but I won't give you any more hints. But it may not be. It could be anyone.
Okay.
In the whole world. So you get to ask a question.
Okay.
What are you asking our next guest?
What can you yourself do to further your own search for that thing that gives you energy and inspiration?
What can you yourself do to further that search that gives you energy and inspiration?
And how can you make it so that helps other people? I don't know.
Perfect. You do know. That's the exact right answer.
Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Explicit. Let's get the E on there.
Fuck yeah.
Fuck
It's eating pussy time.
Thank you, Mike Henry, for coming on the show today.
Alec, I'm thrilled. Yeah, this was totally fun, and I loved being on it, and I can't wait to listen back and tell my friends.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening to the final part of our interview with Mike. I can't begin to express how grateful I am to have met Mike at all, let alone have him on Between Views. Thank you, Mike. Let us know what you thought online or in the comments below. Next, if you're a star, why not leave some for us wherever you're listening and make our night sky dazzle? If you thought that was lame, well, so's leaving no stars. This genuinely helps us get discovered by new listeners and is kind of like saying thank you in the podcast world. So if you enjoyed this at all, please leave some stars, and in return, we'll keep making episodes. In other news, Between Views is always looking for collaborators. If you want to join the team or create something together, then please reach out on Instagram. Finally, if you know someone who deserves to be interviewed or just have some feedback, then send us an email at betweenviewsbv@gmail.com or give us a message on Instagram. Thanks again, and see you soon. Between Views.